Because you are not starting, I'll ask a question, you can start.
Okay. That's a good one.
I have already prepared and start.
Okay, thank you. So, actually, with respect to outreach in the West, there are some areas where people seem to be receptive. So, whatever I observed, it seems like Sattva is rising in the West in these 4 areas. One is yoga, which Maharaj is focusing on the eco-village and the yoga school. Then other is veganism. Then another is environmental consciousness. And the 4th is mental health and mindfulness. Mindfulness is broadly the mental health area. Where people, and say Sattva is rising means that people are looking for more holistic solutions. So people are becoming more and more open to spirituality. And Buddhism has capitalized on this big time. We have not been able to capitalize on it so much. Yoga, Bhakti yogis are not capitalized, but a lot of other yoga people have capitalized on it. So specifically about mindfulness and mental health, it is an increasing problem, and there are ways in which Krishna consciousness can offer wisdom that can solve mental health problems. There are also ways in which, if Krishna consciousness is misunderstood or misapplied, it can aggravate people's mental health problems also. So both can happen. So specifically, I'll talk about the recent discussion I had with Maharaj. There's a case of one center in the Western world, and their devotees were trying to do Western outreach under one spiritual master. And when they were doing this, the leader over there was an Indian who was doing Western outreach. This was all Matajis, mostly Matajis in the center, also Mataji was the center leader. So she became a little strong or harsh with the people whom she was guiding and training. And that person felt hurt. And in the West, emotional abuse is a very tenuous thing. It's very difficult to define also. But anyway, she felt emotionally abused. Now, I'll talk about some cases where actually it has also happened. But I'll tell you the specific case that happened, and then how it escalated and what happened after that. And then what Maharaj said. I'll go into this. So anyway, this case, this girl who was a Westerner, her father was a very influential person in the West. And then she wanted to do a court case against ISKCON. She felt I was abused while I was in the temple, in the center, not in the temple, in the Western Outreach Center. Then that didn't work, or for whatever reason, she decided to go not to the legal way, but the public media way. So somehow she had some contact with New York Times. So an article was published in New York Times talking about this whole issue. But then our devotees came to know about it, and then the devotee who was accused of it, she also hired a very high-powered lawyer because this could become a libel case. And then that attorney wrote a letter to the New York Times, and with almost every accusation that was leveled against her, her response was put in square brackets. So eventually the article that came in square brackets, her response came out. Overall, the article was not very negative, but the end result was that the GBC said that that center should be closed down, and that particular Mataji was told you should not do any more preaching for at least 2 years, and you should get training in what is emotional abuse and how to avoid emotional abuse. And her spiritual master was told that you should encourage all your disciples to do courses in this direction. And in order to not single him out, it was decided in GBC resolution that all gurus should take training in a course in emotional abuse. Now, how much it was implemented, I do not know. But this is what happened. So then I talked with Maharaj about him. So the guru whose disciple this was, that guru is a close friend of Maharaj. So when I talk with Maharaj, Maharaj knew everything about the issue. So Maharaj is so perceptive. Maharaj said, I know that Mataji also is doing Western outreach. He said that she was accused of emotional abuse, but the way she was treated by ISKCON authorities, that was also emotional abuse on her. So but then he said that I understand from the leader's perspective, the devotee who was in charge, the GBC member, who had basically the devotees, when they got the complaint, they had some mental health professionals, some devotees, some secular people. They formed a committee, they did investigation. And when the reports came out, then they took some action. So the GBC member took the action, he said, I know him also. And he has to face the Western media. He will have to face us in court cases. He will have to represent ISKCON in court cases, this becomes a court case. So he said that when I'm sitting in Mumbai, and I am in Radhashtami classes, I am not facing the American media. So I cannot judge him and say that what he did was wrong. But he said that I know her and I will offer her all my support that I can individually. At the same time, he said our devotees, whenever they are doing preaching, they need to be talking with the people whom they are preaching, not just talking to them. Talking with, not talking to. Like you're talking with me, you should hear from them the way we are instructing, what is the impact of that on people. So now after this whole thing happened, this has been going on for several years, and after this whole thing happened, I studied a little bit about emotional abuse, and it is that many of the things which we would normally consider Indian society as normal discipline, they are considered emotional abuse. Now, are they or are they not? It's difficult. It's by that definition, I have been emotionally abused throughout my life. I'm not trivializing emotional abuse. It's a real thing. But that definition itself, it's very, very vague that anything can be included in it, almost. So Maharaj said that, I asked him, how do we ensure that the discipline doesn't become emotional abuse? So he said that, there has to be, the leaders have to be aware and they have to be talking with the people. Only when they're talking, then it won't be seen as emotional abuse. So there are 2-3 different cases where sometimes philosophy is abused, and philosophy can come off in an emotionally abusive way. So I know a couple of cases, and quite horrible the way they happened. So I was at one devotee's house in one country, staying with them, and then this couple, they said, we want to talk with you. I was staying at their home. I said, definitely. So this Mataji, she was in a community, the Mataji was Westerner, the Prabhu was Indian. And I could try to say that they are not, this Prabhu actually couldn't even speak English fluently. And this Mataji was a MA in English literature, very fluent in English. And it was a mess. They have separated now, unfortunately, and the Mataji has left ISKCON also. But I met her when she was in Canada. It's favorable, but anyway. So she was doing a lot of book distribution, and everyone was encouraged to book distribution. Then she got married and she got pregnant. And when she got pregnant, now naturally she couldn't go book distribution. And then while she was pregnant for some time, she had a miscarriage. And then she called her ashram leader. She used to stay in ashram, because for women also they have ashram in the West, in some places. But the first thing her ashram leader told her, Krishna has removed this obstacle for your book distribution. She said that. I know this Mataji also. I talked with her about it after. I'll come to that part. But she said, I was so disgusted. She said, I just mentally turned off from her. She says, I stopped going to the temple. I stopped going there. She was going to her husband was from a Sri Vaishnava background, so she started going to some Sri Vaishnava temple over there. And then when I talked with this Mataji, she said, I was just only trying to help her see something positive. That when Narada's mother passed away, Narada saw this he has been freed from that entanglement so that he can practice Bhakti. So I told her, do you see any differences in the situation? She said, no, it's similar. I said, no, that is a conclusion that Narada himself has arrived at. Now somebody else giving you that conclusion, what happens is, so this Mata just told me, my first thought came, is Krishna a God who kills babies so that his books can be distributed? You know, what kind of God is this? So it is sometimes when people had some adversity happening in their life, at that time, their concern, their faith in God may be shaken. And we try to tell them this is a spiritual opportunity made by Krishna. It's just we're just not speaking to them at all. That means their concern is that, you just have your agenda and I am an instrument in your agenda. You don't care for me at all. You don't care for my emotions at all. So, this is, now the intention might not have an emotional abuse, but these kind of statements are horrible. And basically there is this whole genre of emotionally intelligent spirituality. Emotional intelligence is talked about in the professional workplace, but emotionally intelligent spirituality means that people's emotions are a real part of who they are. Our own emotions are also a part of who we are. And if our spirituality just overrides our emotions, or sidelines our emotions, or suppresses our emotions, then that can be very unhealthy. And eventually people explode over time. They just explode or implode. Explode, they yell at others, implode, they collapse within themselves. So with respect to emotionally abusive spirituality, the key what happens is that at one point I'll conclude, mental health is a separate topic, I'll come to that shortly. But what happens is the leader has a particular mission. And they may be genuinely wanting to serve Krishna with that mission. But they have that mission and everyone seems to just get reduced to a tool for that mission. And what that person is going through, that they just don't care for. And when that happens, people just get lost completely. People get alienated quite a bit. So Maharaj told me that there are so many other experiences of this. So it is misapplication of spiritual principles, where sometimes somebody becomes very fanatical. So now the fanatical is not that leader is a bad person, but what the leader does is that they just don't consider the emotions of the person over there. Consider the situation of the person over there. And this kind of spirituality ends up hurting people. So, for many years within our movement, the emotions were largely seen as Maya. You are just being sentimental. Get out of the mental platform. Get out of the sentimental platform. So what you feel doesn't matter at all. Just do and you'll be purified. There is some truth to that, but we cannot say that it is true for all emotions. Just like if some of us are feeling a little hot right now, little bit heat we can tolerate. But if say below us there is an oven and we are sitting on the oven and it's like a furnace, we are feeling burning, something has to be done about it. So some amount of tolerance of physical discomfort we can do. So some amount of tolerance of emotional discomfort we can do. But if it goes beyond that, then it becomes a serious problem. And if the emotions themselves are treated as Maya, then everything associated with that is just dismissed. And if somebody is feeling hurt, somebody is feeling depressed, somebody is feeling lonely, it's all just Maya. That's how it is treated. But it is not like that. The mind is a reality in itself. Like the body, mind and soul, each one of it is a reality. So, now with respect to mental health, I've talked with many ISKCON leaders and with Maharaj also. So I'll first start with what Maharaj said and then I'll talk about what a few other leaders have talked about. So what Maharaj said is that for mental health, whatever is required, we should encourage devotees to do that. You know, it is not that we should make, if somehow chanting or devotional practices do not help them, then it is not that we should make them feel that they are being unfaithful to Krishna or to Bhakti. If devotional practices help them, wonderful. If they don't, we don't come in the way of whatever they need to do to restore their emotional health. So, Devanath Maharaj told me that he feels that every urban center of ISKCON should have a list of, should have some mental health professionals affiliated with it. That, you know, these are people whom we recommend as a movement. So the idea is that Christians or Catholics are very, very systematic about this, because the mental health professionals can sometimes give advice which may be completely opposite to the religious principles. So they say that these are sanctioned, these are approved, or at least they are not disapproved by the church. So now we have some at some place, like we have some devotees who may offer mental health care, but it's not very well developed. The problem is quite extensive. And you know, there are three different things over here. So this is Devanath Maharaj's opinion. Now there are other devotees who are working in this direction. The Hanumat Prishat Maharaj is the Guru of Radhika Raman Prabhu. He's doing extensive research in Carl Jung and Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur. What both of them say about the mind. Carl Jung is a prominent Western philosopher. Carl Jung. Okay, it's U Y actually. Yeah. So it's Jung, Carl Jung. So he said that many devotees who have talked with him about mental health problems, he asked them to read Carl Jung, and it has helped them quite a bit. So mental health is a serious issue, and it's to say that Krishna consciousness alone will solve mental health problems. No, it is like saying Krishna consciousness alone will solve physical health problems. Now, some ways, yeah, if a person's lifestyle is unregulated, the diet improves, the sattva improves, so physical health can be improved. But it's not that physical health, all problems of physical health will be solved by Krishna consciousness. Similarly, it's not that all problems of mental health will be solved by Krishna consciousness. So I could go more into this, but this was broadly. So there are three things over here. It's like Krishna consciousness and mental health. So we could have three interactions. Krishna consciousness solves mental health problems. Krishna consciousness is independent. That means that you have your mental health issues, you have your Krishna consciousness. You grow Krishna consciousness by certain practices, you address mental health by certain practices. And then this is Krishna consciousness causes mental health problems. So unfortunately the third also happens. Especially I think this happens when there is people with incompatible values. Like somebody who is a very hierarchical conservative, and that person is training somebody who has a liberal orientation. And that person has a need for autonomy. In our brahmachari ashram, we had a yatra. So we had senior brahmacharis. And so Shaman Prabhu asked 3 senior brahmacharis a question. Now if some brahmachari wants to do a service different from what the authorities tell them to do, so how do you see such a brahmachari? So the 3 senior leaders, first, immediately whimsical. Second, he said creative. Third, potential leader. So exact same behavior, right? So somebody is very, very conservative. Say if you want to do what you want to do, that's just being whimsical. So if somebody has a strong need for autonomy, they need their space to do things, and if they have a leader who just doesn't give them space, then they will end up getting mental health problems, because they will start feeling guilty. And I'm not being Krishna conscious, I'm not being sincere enough, this or that. So sometimes, unfortunately, Krishna consciousness can cause mental health problems also. Just I could speak more, but are there any reflections, thoughts on this? Yes, Mother, please.
Many times after mind.
Mike is there.
Many times after woman delivers the child, the husband is very fanatic. He expects her to chant 16 rounds with the same, the same way that she was doing before she even conceived, and without offering any help from his side, then it causes a lot of mental trauma to the woman. So many cases of this sort come. Or sometimes when you are married, many times devotee boys, they get married to somebody from their village because the parents have told them that you should do so, and somebody has told them that devotee girls are not good. You get married to a village.
Devotee girls are not good.
No, they are not good because they are not so, especially Bombay girls, because they are not so submissive as the village girls. Wrong impression, because village girls are equally, girls are girls. So when they get married, they expect them to be on the same level as them. They don't give them their space. I think you had made one quote. Each one from your space, join the race at your own pace.
Yeah.
That is just perfect for everybody. But people don't understand, and then they bring so much pressure without making any emotional investment in that relationship, and that causes a lot of trauma. People go into depression and they suffer a lot because of such behaviors.
Yeah, it's true, unfortunately.
And sometimes even like if the saffron and the grasta, if that clarity is not there, if the saffron, it also depends on their upbringing, how they have been brought up. There's one incident many years back, one of the devotee Matajis was cooking. There was some program, so she was cooking for the guests, and the Prabhuji was holding the child. So the person, the leader, brahmachari leader who was there, he said, देखो इतना बड़ा प्रोग्राम चल रहा है, इतना सेवा है और ये माया में है, बच्चे को पकड़ के खड़ा है. So such a wrong, wrong impression on that person's mind. The next time you will feel that I should not carry the child. The wife is doing seva, so he is holding the child. So like this, so many things happen which then disturb the mind of the person who is doing the seva, and even the wife's mind was disturbed for many days together. So if they are not educated, as you rightly said, emotional intelligence is a must. And I think in the Bhagavad Gita, every chapter Krishna is speaking about emotional intelligence and about compassion and empathy and being tranquil and Sita Prajna and Samikrit. Everywhere he is mentioning these things. So we don't even need the Western philosophy for that. Just our Bhagavad Gita is enough to understand that we need to be emotionally very, very stable. Not only when it comes to ourselves, but even when it comes to others. Sensitivity for ourselves and for others. So generally you are emotionally sensitive for yourself, but you can be very tough when you are dealing with others. Thank you for raising this topic.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
So unfortunately, that point of emotional stability, I have seen it often used as a way of rejecting emotional sensitivity. That it's not that many devotees don't see it as you be emotionally intelligent. It is that his whole emotional sensitivity, you are just too hypersensitive. Actually, you should be going beyond all this. Sthita pragya, you are steady. That means you shouldn't be feeling all these emotions. Actually, there is I would say, historical reason also for this. Our movement is like, when you come from one country to another, suddenly there's a jet lag. So we are still suffering from like a generational jet lag. Generational jet lag means, what I mean is that our first generation was almost entirely monastic. Monastic means everybody lived in a monastery, ashram. Even grahasthas were living in the ashram. So now, the second generation, they are mostly congregation. But what has happened is, much of what Prabhupada has written in his books, in Prabhupada's books there are, you could say, there is something which is timeless, but there is something which is also timely. He is speaking at that time to people who are there. The timeless principles are the timely instructions also. So what has happened? The definition of seriousness in bhakti is equated with monastic standards of bhakti. So monastic standards is, wake up at a particular time, do this Mangalarti, do this, do that. I was in one community in America, and this devotee was a brahmachari, and he was very serious brahmachari, and then he got married, and then he he used to go just like he was as he was brahmachari. Before he was a brahmachari, like 4:30 he would go for the morning program, attend the Bhagavatam class, and come back just prasad, and then he would come back home and he would just go back to the temple in the evening also. And he was all the time spending in the temple. Within 1.5 years, his wife left him. He says, he said that, so she said that he is, I just felt like I was his unpaid maid at home to take care of his home. He was never there for me for anything. And he was bewildered. He said, I did exactly what I was told to do. And I followed Krishna consciousness the way I was told to do. And I tried being a serious grahastha. So what has happened, the idea of a serious grahastha is be like a brahmachari or sannyasi. No, a serious grahastha is be a grahastha. So that generational jet lag is there. And because of that, this problem does come up. So the way how a grahastha should be, grahasthas can take inspiration from brahmacharis, but brahmacharis cannot be models for grahasthas. The grahasthas need grahastha models. So I think those who come from brahmacharya life to grahastha life, it is actually after I started traveling abroad, because in the West mostly we don't have temples and we don't have so many places to stay in the temple. So I started staying in the houses of many grahasthas. That's how actually I had to recalibrate my whole understanding of Krishna consciousness. Because how busy grahastha life is, how many responsibilities are there. Before it was, all this just material entanglement. You can't call it material entanglement, it's responsibility and it needs to be done properly. So I think it is emotional intelligence, you could say, but it's more like we have a problematic definition of success in Bhakti, or even a problematic definition of seriousness in Bhakti. So because of that definition, people may be well intentioned, but they end up making a mess of things. So all that, again, hopefully if there is more interaction, there is more understanding, then things will change. Yes, please.
So in the Indian context, since you spoke about the example of the West, clearly there's something...
Sorry, can you just add one more thing?
Yeah.
This is not just for when there's one boy, he's in the Gurukul. He's now a favorable, very intelligent boy. He's not a devotee, but very favorable. So he says that my prominent memory of my childhood, defining memory of my childhood, is my parents' constant disappointment that I was not the reincarnation of Prahlad Maharaj. So very articulate, very biting. So he said that is my prominent memory of my childhood. Yes, please.
So in the Indian context, clearly there are some things which are absolutely necessary. There's emotional stability, emotional understanding, sensitivity, no doubt. But can't there be differences in the nuances? When you talk about requirements, expectations, standards here in India, the Grihastha versus the West. So while, because it could be perhaps that this could be taken as a license by many Grihasthas to be quite relaxed and they put the family life as it's very important. I subscribe to that, but that thin line between putting it in a very high priority above spiritual life, and service and other things. Where do you draw the line? Because you can easily pick something, and in the West it's a different thing. In India,
okay.
You have given some examples which are perhaps on the extreme side, but then it could be misquoted by some people. That's fine.
So the point I'm making here is that I agree with you fully that when we give a license, people can take give an inch and they take a mile. That is always possible. That's a slippery slope. You can go down that. Now, those who are going to do that, even without an excuse, they will do it. So, It is just that in Krishna consciousness, there are bonds. The bond is with Krishna, and there are boundaries. The boundaries means you need to live within these boundaries. Now, to some extent, now what boundaries should a devotee live in? Say, I joined in 1998, probably till 2009 or something, I didn't read a single news item. Over that time, internet was not there. And I considered my ignorance to be a sign of my transcendence. But then, Maharaj also tells that joke that when he started college preaching, in 1960s, 66, 67, 68, the Vietnam War was going on. And America was drafting people, forcibly conscripting them so that they would go and fight because young Americans were not ready to go. And many young people were actually saying that, oh, I'm a Catholic monk, I'm a Buddhist monk, I'm this. They were using their religious affiliation as a way of dodging the draft. So Maharaj, he said, we were preaching in 1973, 74, or no, 1979, 80. He started preaching, so he also spoke that, like better join the temple, otherwise you will be drafted. And people said, the draft ended 10 years ago. So now, so the point is that Maharaj was completely in his own world at that time. His world with Krishna, of course. But yeah, so the boundaries. Now, what boundaries who can live within? If we impose that too much, then people feel suffocated. And then they can't, they start thinking this is the only way to practice Krishna consciousness. And if you can't, then there is no space for me in Krishna consciousness. So, it's difficult because we want to give space to those who need the space, but we don't want that to become a justification for everyone to go down a further standard. So how do we do that? It's like I met one boy. I'll just conclude this there. And okay, let me first. Maharaj gave me this example of how there are many people who, he said that there's one devotee kid. We have a temple we have the Bhakti Center in New York, and around that we have two other temples. We have one temple in New Jersey, two temples in New Jersey. So there's a temple president, vice president, his son, he's an American Indian now, or Indian American, he's Indian born in America and brought up in America. So he, although his father is the vice president of that temple, he says, I don't feel comfortable in that temple. And he travels 1.5 hours to come to the Bhakti Center. He says, I feel that atmosphere is much more welcoming and accepting. So now, and his father would much rather like he comes to the temple because the whole community is there. But he said that, I just feel constantly judged and devalued over there. In the Bhakti Center, I feel accepted. So he talked with Maharaj also about it. So Maharaj said that, if Bhakti Center had not been there, then he would have probably left Bhakti. He would have thought that, okay, this is the only way to practice Bhakti. So I asked him, what does it mean feel judged? So he said that whenever I go to the temple, everybody asks me, how many rounds are you chanting? I went to the Bhakti Center, nobody asked me how many rounds I'm chanting. So just, okay, you can come, you practice Bhakti. Now those who ask him also how many rounds you're chanting, they may be with good intention. But just people feel pressured by that. They're small things. So my point is that we want to give space for different people who want to practice Bhakti in different ways. But, or at different levels. Now, do we want people who are more serious to go down to a less serious level? I don't think so. But there are many who cannot practice at that level for whatever reason. And we don't want to lose them. Am I addressing your point?
So the challenge would be to define these boundaries in the Indian context and in the Western context.
Yeah, I think that's something which is Right? I think we'll have to be on case to case or a situation to situation thing. Yes.
Can we really differentiate that in this age, when the whole world is a village because of the technology and media? So can we really differentiate any longer? Maybe 5-10 years more later on, everything is going to be, whether it is Indian context or Western, with regard to what Krishna Prabhu is asking.
Good question. It's interesting that in the West, in many ways, Indians are asserting their Indianness more now. It's maybe because India is rising on the geopolitical scene, so Indians are more confident, less ashamed. Now, in what way they may assert their Indianness, that may vary. But I think the differences themselves will not go away entirely. But they may not be conceived in the same way as they were conceived in the past. So, Martin Luther King, we know him as a civil rights activist in America. He was actually also a Baptist priest. So he said that the church hour is the most divided hour in America. What he meant by that is that in a church, people like to worship with people from their backgrounds. So there's a very successful church in New York. They have 8 services. And so one service for white Americans, one service for black Americans, one service for Latinos, one service for Chinese people, one service for Irish people, one service for Indian people. And they reset the entire ambience. Or the pastor will speak in that particular language. They will have food in that language. They will have music in that particular culture. They will, as much as possible, they reset the church ambience according to that. So basically, the point is that when people are doing some worship, they want to generally feel culturally comfortable. So, to what extent will the identity be asserted? Now, if we say culture in terms of dress, how many people are going to wear the same dress that maybe one generation ago people were wearing? That may not be the same. But culture in terms of music, I think a lot of, at least in, I don't know here in India, but America, a lot of young Indian girls learn Bharatanatyam, Kathakali, and it's become a big thing. And it also gives them a sense of cultural pride. And they perform in their colleges and they spend hours and hours, years they spend dedicating. And it's, your parents can't pressurize beyond a particular time. They have to have that taste. So I think culture is being asserted, but maybe not in exactly the way it was traditionally. Some aspects, these girls, maybe Kathakali dancers or Bharatanatyam dancers, still may have girlfriends, they may have boyfriends. So they may take some things from that culture, something from our culture. So it's not that the traditional culture will be completely rejected, but some parts of it may be retained, some may not be. Does it make sense? Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Towards the end of what you were speaking about emotional health, you mentioned the fact that Bhakti, the Krishna consciousness, can become a cause for lack of emotional health. There you spoke about that if you push someone too much when they're not ready for it, right, then it can cause actually guilt and so many other things that are there. Now, I'd like to hear from you that as counselors, we're serving as counselors, we are expected to work with devotees and gently nudge them to take Krishna consciousness more seriously. And sometimes we see people kind of slipping away or kind of going into that kind of drifting. It doesn't happen abruptly, it happens over a period of time. We see them drifting or losing their focus in Krishna consciousness and their many other priorities. So at that time when we speak to them, it's a very weird conflict, because if we push too hard, yes, it can be seen as emotional abuse. But if we don't push, then we are kind of condoning or accepting that they're drifting away, what can be done. So because they're not going to they're not change their path if you just leave them where they are. So what is the right way to balance without causing emotional abuse at the cost of trying to bring them back into the mainstream? Because now, based on what we discussed today, mainstream itself, the definition has become little blurred. So if you could just help to understand.
There's one place in America which is like a, you could say, the place of where retired Prabhupada disciples stay. It's one state in America is there's no state tax, so it's cheap to stay there. There are many Prabhupada disciples, and many of those disciples, it's known that that they don't chant 16 rounds. It's known that they are not necessarily following all the principles of Bhakti. But as Maharaj goes there, there are quite a few devotees with whom Maharaj spends time. So I know one prominent leader in London who has now, more or less, he said, I have resigned from Krishna consciousness because so, but still when Maharaj goes, then Maharaj spends time with him. So I don't know what Maharaj talks with him, but I mean, he's a very intelligent person, and somebody can be intelligent and leave Krishna consciousness. It's not that just because they are leaving Krishna consciousness. There are issues. See, again, from the right-wing perspective, what happens? If somebody leaves Krishna consciousness, the system is right, the individual is wrong. That's the idea. And Haravinda Sarupo says that when any devotee would bloop in our ashram, we would all come together and we would have a collective fault-finding session. Oh, it's Sri Panjamba. I saw him stealing Mahaprasad. I saw him committing Vaishnava. Because of that, he left. He's a bad person, we are all nice. So like that, we would pat ourselves on the back and we are right, he's bad. So the rightest way is that the system is perfect, the individual is flawed. And now the philosophy itself may be perfect, but the institution may not be. And there are times the left way is, this whole setup is wrong and the individual is right. Therefore the whole setup has to be changed. The truth generally is somewhere in between. Anyway, so from at least when I had talked with the devotee, I have a good relationship with him. The London devotee, I not talked so much with the Alachua devotees. But he has a very warm relationship with Maharaj. I don't think Maharaj is pushing him to start chanting his rounds or anything like that. So you could say this is the way Maharaj acts. I don't say that Maharaj is his own person and he deals with people in a particular way. I was once talking with Giriraj Maharaj, and Giriraj Maharaj told me, whenever I meet him, sorry, I'm wandering off, but I'll come back to your point again. That Giriraj Maharaj, okay, tell me about your interaction with Radhanath Maharaj, what happened? So Giriraj Maharaj told me, that, I noticed that Radhanath Maharaj never gives you any instructions. He only gives suggestions. So I never thought about it. I said, yes. Then I asked 3 of my senior godbrothers, why does Maharaj, like say when I'm traveling abroad, which places should I go, which places should I go? Maharaj said, well, nice, you can spend more time over here. He doesn't say stay only at this place or do all this. So then I asked 3 different godbrothers, and all 3 first said, Maharaj doesn't think you are surrendered enough. So that's why he's not giving you instruction. The second devotee said that. Second godbrother, he said that Maharaj doesn't want to bind you with instructions which you may not be able to follow. Third, he said that, Maharaj will, that is just Maharaj's nature. Maharaj will encourage, but Maharaj will not insist on anything. So you need to see his encouragement as an instruction. Now, I would say that these 3 set of explanations tell me more about that person than about Maharaj. So, but what I have seen is that Maharaj is, he tries to maintain the relationship. And certainly with the relationship, we would like the person to practice Bhakti or recommence the practice of Bhakti. But I don't know how much, there's one devotee in, how much Maharaj will push. There's one devotee in Galachua he had a severely, not just autistic child, like the child had cerebral palsy and he was a disciple of Maharaj, and multiple health problems. And basically it was like, when the mother was in the hospital, the hospital made a mess of everything. And because of that, the child was born seriously with serious problems. So he wrote to Maharaj and asked Maharaj that should I see this as a karma and accept it, or should we sue the hospital? So Maharaj said that you have to take care of your child, and if you can get some support in taking care of your child, then see that support as something which will help you in your service. So then he sued the hospital and he's got lifelong support now. So now in that context he said that when this whole thing was going on, he said, then I had a child to take care of, I had a court case to attend to. Related to your point, he said, I just could not chant my rounds. So he said, I wrote to Maharaj. He said, he's a son of a disciple of Prabhupada. So Maharaj is quite close to him. So Maharaj, he said, I just don't have any time to chant any rounds right now. Not any rounds, I chant my 16 rounds. So Maharaj said that, I trust the sincerity of your heart. And Maharaj did not comment anything about his not chanting 16 rounds. So, not that he is condoning it, but he is neither condemning him for it. So, life is demanding at times. And sometimes people are dealing with complex situations. So, some people are like, in the West I have seen people are very insightful. The other boy told me that throughout my childhood, I never felt as if my parents loved me. They loved the idea of me being a trophy of their Krishna consciousness. That they could show in the community what a wonderful devotee my child is. So they just wanted me to be a trophy. It's a sadly insightful perspective. So people at such times, when they go into difficulties, they really have this question: do you care for me as a human being, or do you care for me simply as a success story of your preaching? So people need to feel we care for them as a person. And yes, we would like them to be Krishna conscious, but if they feel that we don't care for them as a person, then they will go away from Krishna. They will go away from us, and they will go away from Krishna consciousness also. Okay, that's true. Yes, please.
With this mental and emotional issues, now taking more or less center stage, I think it's not only amongst the youth, but because of the stress or pressures, it's also there, within the devotee community. So it may be very important that our leaders, counselors, also sort of get, some sort of education in what really it means, because these are very subtle issues. So it can be brushed aside. Just like some time back, when we started this POSH, we have a team over here. I don't think people really believe that, this is a real issue within the community. And it has such a broad connotation that it covers, many acts which should be considered under, this particular umbrella. Similarly, mental and emotional issues also. Yes, Krishna consciousness will definitely help, but beyond that, maybe you need medical treatment, you need medicines, you need so many other things to be treated, which I think as devotees who are coming, being there in the movement for so many years, probably we are not fully aware of these things. Now we are becoming aware because of what is happening to the younger generation and all. So it may also be important for our congregation, for what actually scientifically it means. And maybe within families, we ourselves are going through that. There is somebody in the family who is, devotee for so many years, but still going through that.
Yeah, I think that education is very much required. There is some devotees have started this. There's one online forum called Karuna Care, which is some devotees. Rampur Mataji has started an online forum, and it is more customized for Western outreach, or rather, she's a Westerner, and more Western context. She is doing something, but it's much more needed, and it's like, okay, this is I think an important point. This is ISKCON, and this is the Krishna consciousness movement. So what I mean by that is, the Krishna consciousness movement is much bigger than ISKCON, and like much of the Western outreach is happening through the Krishna consciousness movement. It's not happening through ISKCON. By ISKCON I mean the official structures of ISKCON, the official temple, the official management hierarchy. So for ISKCON itself to take up things, our leaders are just caught in many roles and responsibilities. It's like, are the gurus meant to be Brahmanas or Kshatriyas? Are they meant to be spiritual guides or are they meant to be managers? Most of the time, many gurus are doing both things. So it's apart from vision casting for preaching. ISKCON as an institution is otherwise mostly in a firefighting mode. It is that, when a big crisis comes, we try to solve it. So to expect ISKCON itself to take up this as an issue, it's difficult. But if somebody takes it up as an issue, and they will get support. They may not necessarily get like the full backing of the institution, but I don't think anybody is going to oppose it. So as a movement grows, what happens is that a lot of devotees may take individual initiatives for things. Like ISKCON doesn't have much centralized initiative for say children's outreach. We have youth outreach, youth ministry is there. But congregation devotees know it's important and they take responsibility. Some devotees have written books, some devotees have done some things. So I think this has to come from somewhere outside the institution. Mental health. If devotees take initiative, then it will move forward. And there are devotees who are taking it forward. But there are many things which are needed in our movement which we cannot wait for the leadership to take it.
But the leader has to buy the idea that there is a problem, or they say, no, all is
I don't
except
think
what is missing is only Krishna consciousness.
I think a few leaders may do that, but अभी क्या हो रहा है कि mental health has there's one atheist, he said that, Victor Hugo said that when it comes to money, everyone belongs to the same religion. So now what he meant by that is, let us say tomorrow somebody ends their life on ISKCON property, and the suicide note they leave that ISKCON did something to bother him. It would be a huge case, and it has happened at times, unfortunately. So our leaders are at least that financial risk, they are aware of that. So it's unfortunate that money only makes us move, or monetary consequences make us more, reputational consequences. So it's like, Kshatriyas, they are moved by reputational consequences. Maranadati richyate. Vaishyas, they are moved by financial consequences. Brahmanas will be moved by intellectual foresight. That this is going to be a problem in the future. But I'm just giving a very simplistic understanding over here. But I don't see that there will be huge opposition to this. If somebody takes the initiative for doing this, they will. And I was talking with Bhurijan Prabhu and Chowpatty Mataji. They are staying in Perth, not in the temple, but they have got their small place separately. And Chowpatty Mataji has created a very nice Sacred India gallery. Even Modi tweeted about it. And said, it's a very beautiful replica of Vrindavan and Mayapur she's created over there. Small. But anyway, so she was telling me that there is inside ISKCON, there is outside ISKCON, and there is besides ISKCON. So what he meant by besides ISKCON is, if you are inside ISKCON, then you are controlled by the institutional machinery. And so she said, I had always a tendency to do something artistic. But when I was living in the Vrindavan temple, if I asked for some time for art, people would say, there is so much deity worship to do, there is so much cooking to do, there is so much preaching to do. I felt as if I was taking something from ISKCON. And I used to feel guilty about that. I said, now we got my own place. I have done this artistic preaching and artistic service. And now ISKCON sends its devotees to come and see this and learn about Krishna consciousness. And many other people, many other tourists also come over here. So, if we go outside ISKCON, then we lose connection with the movement. If we're inside, then whatever is the leadership or the management's vision, only that gets done. But if you're besides ISKCON, we can have our space and we can do what we want to do. So I think a lot of good work is happening besides ISKCON. And when that starts having some result, then it gets recognized and then it may be replicated. I would say the Bhakti hospital or something started besides ISKCON. But now, at least the need for a hospital in Mayapur, they are trying to start something. Other places, it is a difficult model to replicate. But, so that's my broad understanding that leaders, I don't think they will seriously oppose it today. They may not fully encourage it. Generally, in any institutional setup, there are two things. There is freedom and there is facility. So both rarely come together. If we want freedom to do something, we won't get the institutional facility generally. If we want facilities, we won't get freedom. So it depends on each individual what they feel they need the most. If I want to teach my Bhagavad Gita in my own way, if the temple has a particular setup, okay, you do the 6-session course, then I may not get the temple support. The temple may not advertise that way of doing the course. But that doesn't mean I can't do it myself. And I can't, it's in one sense unreasonable to demand freedom and facility both. The facility will be used the way according to the vision of the leaders. But if somebody has they have a particular vision, they have the freedom, they create the facilities. Prabhupada did not use any of the facilities of Gaudiya Math. Actually, when Prabhupada went to America, he had no intention of starting ISKCON. He saw himself as a follower of his Guru Maharaj. And in one sense, he was just carrying on the Gaudiya Math. But when the Gaudiya Math gave him no support, rather they tried to undermine what he was doing, then if he would have used that name, that would have created legal complications for him. So he used a different name. So I think should we stop here? So thank you very much, and I'm so grateful that I could be of some service. And there are many issues that I'm also learning about. And if there's anything which I have spoken that that you feel is provocative or improper, please let me know, or you can let Krishna Chandra know. He will let me know in his own Vaishnava way, and I'll try to improve myself also. Thank you very much. His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
Many devotees were going there all thanking you, and a lot of them said that they were hoping that this could have been a longer session. Not here, not in this way, but in a